have a conversation with my students, when I try to have just a casual conversation, I would get this deer in the headlights look like. And then they would go into this what I call Porky Pig syndrome. They would go, "Itake, itake, itake," and it just wasn't working. And I was frustrated because I said, I can't do this. These young men and women, when they graduate, they're going to go into a work environment in which they're expected to think at higher levels of cognition. They're expected to analyze, to synthesize, to evaluate, and they have to do it in a language that is not their first language, in English. And I wanted them to be there. And what happened was that I started experimenting with this and that, and after a while, I developed a system which I think worked. I call it teaching English without teaching English. What I did was I moved away from the grammar and I developed a system in which I divided the class into 3 stages. The first stage, I give my students a BS detector. And this BS detector, it is a fully functional, portable, but high-maintenance mental device that they install into neurons, and whenever they detect BS, which is very frequently, it should go off, the alarm should go off, and BS, 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 BS. And how do I do that? Well, the BS detector has 3 parts. Part number 1 is critical thinking skills. I have my students learn that whenever they read anything, whenever they listen to a TED Talk, whenever they listen to a debate, a conversation, they should ask a number of specific questions. For example, is the speaker being specific? People who know what they're talking about usually are very specific. They can say who, what, where, when, how many, how often. Now, people who are how should I say, BS artists, they'll run away from specificity. They will not be specific because specificity entails responsibility. And when people are not specific, I point out to my students that usually it's one of 2 reasons. Either they do not know what they're talking about, and there's nothing wrong there. We're all ignorant in different fields, and if you don't know, you cannot be specific. That's a human trait. But sometimes people are not specific because they don't want you to know what they're talking about. And now there's an element, an ethical element of betrayal there, of concealment. So the first thing that they need to learn is ask specific questions. Is the speaker comprehensive? Is she looking at all the available evidence? Is the speaker looking at the burden of proof? When you say something, you are responsible for providing evidence for that claim. Is the speaker, if they're talking about a scientific topic, is there replicability? Is there experimental data to support that claim? And once I get that part of the BS detector firmly installed, well, they will ask specific questions of whatever they read, see, or hear. I go to the second part. They should detect logical fallacies. And logical fallacies are mistakes people make in the reasoning process. And we all do it. For example, siempre que dejo la sombrilla, llueve. Every time I forget my umbrella, it rains. Oh, really? Do you really think there's a relationship between the weather and you forgetting your umbrella? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Because then the 4-year drought they have in California, all we have to do is get Californians to forget their freaking umbrellas, and then it'll rain, okay? And that's a non sequitur. That's the name of that fallacy, a false cause and effect. A happens, then B happens, and then you assume that A caused B. Maybe, maybe not. You have to check. Another logical fallacy, which is very common, are ad hominems. And ad hominems are nasty little things because this is when the person gets personal. Instead of attacking your arguments, the person attacks your person. They attack your integrity. And unfortunately, political debate is usually polluted by that. When somebody is losing an argument, instead of sticking to the merits of the arguments, they back off and then they start getting nasty and offensive. Ad hominems are terrible, but they're very useful in the hands of people who have no scruples. And another logical fallacy that's very popular is argument from authority. This must be true because somebody who knows more than me says it's true. And I have my students learn how to identify at least 5 or 6 of those logical fallacies. The third part of the BS detector I take from Benjamin Bloom. This was a wonderful scientist who started thinking about thinking. And this guy said, what do we do with our brains when we're thinking? And he identified 5 or 6 skills, depending on which taxonomy you use. And for example, the basis of all learning is remembering, memorization. And you need that for everything. You need that for everything. However, if you stay at that level in which you only memorize and you repeat, that's not deep thinking. That's not deep thinking at all. And now